My Republican colleagues want to talk about keeping D.C. streets crime-free. They can't even keep the halls of Congress crime-free, because we gonna talk about this, because I got 24 seconds. My freshman colleague has just been indicted on 13 felony counts, right? But have they exhibited any courage to say, you know what, we will disallow this in our body. We will make sure that we expel this individual. They have not. So what I don't want to hear is that they care about crime, because if they did, they would start by cleaning up our own house and mind our own business instead of coming after D.C. So thank you so much for your time.
Stand up. From a defabricated solar-powered garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominic. On today's episode, how to keep blood pressure steady when your gastroenterologist says it's time for the Roto-Rooter. And now, the podcast host who has no worries for such things because his colon looks like gentle snowy hills, Pete Dominic!
Yes, that's right. I had to send the photos to Pete Co. to give him an image to create for everybody here at the top. Thank you, Pete, and thank you for pressing play on today's episode of Stand Up, where each and every day I talk about one of the important issues that matters to you and your life and your town, your community, your country, your planet, your spirit, your soul. And I talk to experts, smart, articulate, often interesting, entertaining, hilarious people. Today, I've got Wajahat Ali joining me. I haven't talked to him for the first time. And we do talk a little bit about my colonoscopy at the top. And so I won't go too far more into it. I've really not been eager to discuss it unless you follow me on social media, listen to the podcast, or have said hello to me over the past couple of weeks. Other than that, I've really been very hesitant to discuss it. Anyway, the short version is the drink was tasteless, tastes like water. The poops were painless, but the hunger was rough. So if you're getting your colonoscopy, you haven't yet, nothing really to worry about. I mean, I understand people have anxiety when they're getting anesthesia or when they're in the hospital or any kind of healthcare facility at all. But I'd say just get the morning appointment so you have to wait, because the worst part was not being able to eat. That was tough. But my colon health is spectacular, and the doctor basically said, keep doing what you're doing. So more chicken, whiskey, and chips for this 47-year-old. All right. Well, we'll get more into it with Waj and at the Hangout. Thank you to everybody who sent me jokes and advice. So many people throughout my career have lived their lives a bit ahead of me. They've become parents or retired or had health issues, things that I inevitably will encounter. And you've given me such great advice. I'll be leaning on many of those same people when Ava goes off to college at the end of the summer, because that is going to be something I can forecast will be challenging, and I've already heard from many of you on that. And so thank you for all the tips and advice on the colonoscopy. I try to pay it forward and share it with you if you haven't gotten it yet. I know already that some of you have made the appointment as a result of me talking about it and reminding you. So good on you. Good on you. Very healthy. And I should say thank you to Val, because she's the one that basically made the appointment for me after she got hers. I think she wanted to see how I would handle it. And I came out with flying colors. She took me out to lunch after. It was a really nice afternoon. All right, well, I've got Wajahat Ali coming up. But first, here is some news. I got a couple clips to play for you. President Biden said he was going to cut his trip to Asia short and return to Washington to continue negotiations on lifting the debt ceiling. A lot to talk about with that. Rudy Giuliani, the former America's mayor, American hero, Rudy Giuliani. Never liked him. Actually, I never liked him. I was a New Yorker when he was mayor, and minority folks, black and brown New Yorkers, hated the guy, and I in solidarity with them for that. Anyway, he reportedly discussed selling presidential pardons for $2 million that he would split with Trump, and so much more. Did you follow that crazy story about Rudy Giuliani yesterday? Democrats introduced a resolution to expel George Santos. President Biden vetoed a resolution that would have reinstated tariffs on solar panels imported from Chinese companies in Southeast Asia in violation of trade rules. And in a hypothetical matchup in a new poll, voters prefer Joe Biden to Donald Trump 44 to 38%. What else do I have for you? It was election day yesterday. CNN projected Daniel Cameron, the black male Republican who is very controversial amongst the vast majority of black folks. Seems like he's upholding the white supremacy there in Kentucky. Look him up. He won the primary, and he'll face the incumbent, that's Democrat Andy Beshear, in the fall. We had a board BOE results, BOE election, and I haven't gotten the results yet. It is almost midnight here on the East Coast, so I'm looking forward to hearing about that. Philadelphia had elections. I hope you had elections. We'll talk about that on the Hangout on Thursday night. Oh, and look at this. At 81, Martha Stewart is not slowing down, and some might say she's heating up. Where am I reading this? People magazine. Stewart has been chosen as one of Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover models, apparently. They announced that on Monday. Martha Stewart's going to be on the front of Sports Illustrated in a swimsuit. Good for her. She's smoking hot. Love it. Okay, well, those are just some of the headlines. And now, what have I got to play for you? Oh, I opened there with Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She is on the Oversight Committee, which is run by the craziest of Republicans. So that was just so great. I wanted to open with that. That oversight hearing yesterday was absolutely batshit crazy. But the Democrats continue to do, I think, a really good job. This new crew of young, gregarious, outspoken men and women, black and white, young, mostly young, middle-aged. I love it. I love this new crop of Democrats in the House. And the black folks aren't taking it anymore. That's kind of the best part. They're fighting really hard, not pulling punches most of the time. Sometimes I want them to go harder, but that isn't up to me. Anyway, Jasmine Crockett there at the top. That was great. I'm not going to play or comment too much on the Elon Musk CNBC interview other than say, go watch it and watch the analysis of it. It's a lot, but it's an interesting story. And if I had time, I would have grabbed the audio for that. But I also didn't want to torture you with his weird way of speaking that makes me feel uncomfortable, mostly because of the content of what he's saying. But I can't lie. He's just not very good at talking. The other big story yesterday, of course, is that the Durham report dropped, and depending on who you are is going to be your interpretation. On the right, I saw more than a few people calling it a coup. Trump complained. They called it a coup, and so did I saw comedian Dave Smith write that. He's a libertarian. It's bizarre commentary and hyperbolic commentary, but the legal analysis of it, I think, is what matters. And while just about everybody has an opinion on it, I think those who have ever worked in the Department of Justice, who have worked in the FBI, former federal prosecutor types, they're the ones that have the best ability to look at a situation like this, an investigation like this, and break it down for us, which is why they've all become so popular and some of them very wealthy as analysts. They've done a pretty good job. Obviously, some of it's speculation, but after the investigation comes out, everybody gets a pretty good shot at analyzing it. And let's see, my old friend Steve Bannon, he tore into John Durham, called his lack of prosecutorial wins an epic failure. So he didn't like it, but others said it vindicated Trump or exonerated Trump. Here's News Nation host and veteran legal expert Dan Abrams going over the Durham report on his show on News Nation. I thought this was interesting.
After 4 years of investigating, the final report is in from John Durham, the special counsel initially appointed by then Attorney General Bill Barr to examine the origins of the 2016 probe of the Trump campaign's ties to the Russians. You will hear a lot of politicized analysis of this report on other networks from both sides. I'm going to try to play it straight for you and pull no punches with this analysis. Here's the bottom line. If you are one of those hoping for a knockout punch by Durham, declaring that the FBI investigation was somehow criminal or even overtly politicized, then you likely will be disappointed. But there is also no shortage of criticism from Durham for the investigation, which he sure seems to believe never should have been opened in the first place. Now, he doesn't come out and say that directly in the 306-page report, but John Durham declares, quote, that the Justice Department and the FBI failed to uphold their important mission of strict fidelity to the law. That's a big statement. But the reason this isn't that huge a punch is the following. First, The DOJ Inspector General already wrote a report in 2019 which laid out many of the same criticisms of the Russia investigation, where the Inspector General declared that, quote, basic and fundamental errors were made by 3 separate hand-picked teams on one of the most sensitive FBI investigations that was briefed to the highest levels within the FBI. And yet Inspector General Michael Horowitz determined that there was enough evidence to open the investigation, and maybe most importantly that, quote, we did not find documentary or testimonial evidence that political bias or improper motivation influenced the decisions by the FBI.
All right, there you go. That's Dan Abrams. He is painfully fair, and I think I side more with people like Barbara McQuaid, who had a great Twitter thread on this that I shared. I highly recommend reading that. And of course, Glenn Kirshner and others. We'll be talking to people about that. The Durham Report, certainly experts who have great analysis of it. But let's go on to one more story, one more thing that I wanted to tell you about. This is a pretty big deal down in Florida, where a 5th grade teacher is now under investigation for showing her 5th graders a Disney movie. After a long day of standardized testing, Florida 5th grade teacher Jenna Barbie decided the students needed a break. She had the students watch a Disney movie called Strange World. She's a first-year teacher in Hernando County, is being subject now to a misconduct investigation by the Florida Department of Education. Reading from Judd Legum's Popular Info, who has a great story on it. Strange World, he writes, was released in 2022. It follows a family of explorers who must work together to, quote, hunt down whatever's killing their town's power-providing plants. According to Common Sense Media, a nonprofit that evaluates books and films for children, it's suitable for kids as young as 8. There's no sexual content. Common Sense Media notes that the parents of the main character, Ethan, embrace throughout the movie in a brief but loving manner. Ethan expresses a romantic interest in his crush, Diazo, on a few occasions, but it's only seen speaking to him once. Barbie, the teacher, said she showed the movie because it's about Earth and that it's our current lesson in science. And let her take it from there, because she was great on CNN last night with Alison Camerata. I'm going to try to get her on this show. This is like a 4 minutes, but I think it's absolutely worth it. And she just does such a great job explaining this. And I'm going to throw in all 7 minutes of it because, you know, CNN's getting very, very low ratings. Nobody's watching CNN. Less people watching CNN than Newsmax. And I thought this was great, all 7 minutes. So if you don't want to hear it, if you're not interested in this issue, which I think is really important and a harbinger of things that might be coming to your Board of Education, to your kids' schools, then fast forward 7 minutes. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy this amazing performance by this great young teacher. Again, I opened the clip with a scene from the, quote, controversial movie.
Any sweethearts waiting for you back home, huh? Ah, there it is. Who is it?
It's no one. Diazo. His name is Diazo.
Diazo, huh?
I really like him a lot. I just don't know how to tell him.
I want to bring in Jenna Barbie. She's that 5th grade teacher in Hernando County, Florida. Ms. Barbie, thank you for being here. Is that the moment? I mean, does it get worse from there? Does it get more controversial? Or is that the clip?
I think that is the worst part of the whole movie if you're going to talk about worst in sense of homosexuality.
Okay. And so why did you show that movie to your 5th grade class?
Well, if you can ask anyone in my 5th grade class, you would know that I am a huge Earth activist. I tell them all the time that the Earth is alive and you need to breathe with the trees. So every time we go out to recess, there's been so many times where I tell my students, nope, get me 5, get me 10 pieces of trash. And they all scatter and they run and they come to me. And it just so happened that after that state exam that morning, when I had them in the afternoon and most of the teachers played a movie, I was like, what am I going to play? And then I remembered this movie where they got to not just connect to the earth, but you got to see the earth as their earth, as this living, breathing, alive thing, and that treating it with love and kindness was what it needed to grow and to blossom and to heal. And my students, that's what we were learning about in science actually at the time. It's the earth ecosystems and how plants and animals and life all just connect and grow. And so I was like, this is the perfect movie. This will show them everything that I've been telling them all year about breathing with the trees and picking up the trash and why we don't kill the bugs.
And little did you know.
We see
Yeah, I mean, and little did you know that you would be investigated as a result. Did you? I mean, everything you've said, I totally understand. I totally get why that movie would appeal to you. But did you know there was a gay character in it?
I did. And I will be totally honest. I did. But I was raised in a way that that's not a big deal to me. Like and my class, I have students who have told me way before this that they're part of that community. Like it's love. I mean, the fact that there's love being spread, the world doesn't have enough of that. So,
did you know that? Yeah, I hear you. But I mean, there's nothing obscene. Of course, it's a PG movie. All the parents had signed permission slips for the kids to see a PG movie. But you do know that in Florida, in elementary schools now, and I think maybe even high schools, you're not allowed to introduce the subject of homosexuality. I mean, did you know you were breaking the rule?
You know what? I did not know that. I did not know that was a thing. Actually, I just found out today that they increased it to my level in, I guess, high school on April 30th, and now today to the college level, which is just insane to me because those are adults. But anyway, I honestly had no idea. I had no idea whatsoever that this was such a big deal. I didn't even know it was a big deal until it was brought to my attention, because it's just, these students all have one-to-one devices. They talk about these things all the time. I've shut down much worse in class. And so to me, this was just, it was a common theme that people talk about all the time. My students talk about all the time. I honestly don't follow the news like that.
Yeah,
I barely have time for that.
That's very funny that you say that, because we did do the story when it changed. From first it was pre-K through third grade. And then, as you say, at the end of April, it changed to all the way through high school. But I take your point that you hadn't followed that part. And I guess that there was no edict sent out from the governor's mansion that a memo, I should say, that you read. Let me just play for you, Ms. Barbie, what the parent who objected to this. She also happens to be a school board member. So let me play for you what she says was the problem. Let me just play for you, Ms. Barbie, what the parent who objected to this. She also happens to be a school board member. So let me play for you what she says was the problem.
It is not a teacher's job to impose their beliefs upon a child. Religious, sexual orientation, gender identity, any of the above. But allowing movies such as this assist teachers in opening a door, and please hear me, they assist teachers in opening a door for conversations that have no place in our classrooms.
Okay, your response to that?
Yes. So I just think I feel for her, because she obviously has never volunteered in the school, especially at this level, because our students, that door that she's talking about, that's been open. These students have one-to-one devices. These students are talking about things way beyond this. This door that she's talking about, it's been open. These are common conversations that I have to tell my students, whoa, we're getting a little too much here, or you need to calm down. And I have students who come to me and be like, oh, well, I think I feel that way. And you have to just say as a teacher, okay, that's wonderful. And you move on, because what they're missing is this Disney movie is not opening a door. Disney does not open doors to these conversations. Disney represents the melting pot of the public education system. Disney represents the melting pot that America is supposed to be. And that's what people don't understand. Like, we're having all these views where we're putting hate toward these things, but Disney represents the pure melting pot, the land of the free because of the brave. But now it's becoming, you're free, but not if you're going to talk about that. Yeah. And you're free to read, and not if it's going to be that. So Disney represents this.
Yeah, I hear you. But we have only a few seconds left. What's your plan? Yeah. I mean, you're a first year teacher. Are you going to continue being able to teach? Do you want to?
Not in the public education system. I am going to go work on a curriculum to create my own education system, because Florida needs a change, and I want to be that change, and I can't from inside these walls.
I don't know why that's the longest clip I've probably ever played on the show. It's certainly not the most important thing I've ever played, but I just liked it. And it's a podcast, so you can always fast forward. If you don't like when I do that, tell me. I'm going to be putting out a poll soon to ask what you like and don't like about the show, what you want more of or less of. But that's a good little, I don't know. I learned that when I was on the POTUS channel, that a lot of people, not everybody, maybe not even most people, like contextual clips, audio clips, speeches, and so on. Obviously not doing quite that, but I still like to give a little longer than a soundbite. So let me know what you think of something like that. All right, now it's time to get to my guest, okay? Forget all the rest of the news. I don't know what else is happening. I'm still waiting for the BOE election results here close to midnight. But I have a great conversation with Wajahat Ali, who hasn't been on the show in a while. It's time for Waj Wednesdays, everybody. course, you can read him over at the Daily Beast. He's a former CNN contributor, former contributor to the New York Times. He's a playwright, a lapsed attorney, an advocate, an activist, and a really good friend to a lot of us. And you can hear him on his own podcast, co-hosting his own podcast with the great Danielle Moody, Democracy-ish. Follow him on the social medias, and we kick it off again talking, hopefully for the final time, about my colonoscopy. Unless, of course, you say hello to me, in which case I'll talk all about it. All right, let's do it with the Waj.
How do you feel now that you've been probed?
It was all of it was easy except for being starving, which you, if you haven't done this yet, won't maybe have as much of a struggle with because you're used to fasting, what with your commitment to your faith.
So how long did you have to fast for?
Maybe 36 hours.
Are you serious? You had to fast for 36 hours? You couldn't eat any food?
Well, only because of my appointment time, I suppose. Like I had to start the morning of Monday. Well, Sunday night we went out to dinner for Mother's Day, and that was the last time I ate until this afternoon, so Tuesday afternoon. So like a day and a half because my appointment was at 12:30. I would say, I said to them, I go, could you get an appointment earlier? She's like, yeah, we have 7:30 appointments. I was like, next time I'll take the 7:30 because I was really ornery and childlike.
And man, this is before the probe.
Probe is nothing. You're out. Anesthesia. I woke up at the end of it though, wore off. I was like, I am awake, I announced.
And did they say that you had the best asshole, the most exquisite asshole of all time?
What they said was, I go, how was it? They said no polyps, totally clean, but but we are shocked that you had an erection the entire time.
You're like, no, not gay. I'm not gay. And they're like, we're not saying anything, Pete. Like, I'm not gay. Just want to say that. That's the first thing you say when you wake up. I'm not gay. And they're like, don't you want to find out if you're safe and everything's fine? Just want to say not gay. Just want to say.
I was like, are we in Florida?
Yeah. That's congrats. I mean, the fact is we're at that stage of our life now where we talk about, so did you get it yet? No, I'm going next week. How was it? Any tips? Any recommendations?
I think 45 and up, if you had any family history, get in there and get scoped. You can also do the, shit in the box, the color guard thing. But
what prompted you to get it done?
My wife literally made the appointment for me.
Good for her, man. That's love.
Yeah. So she had done it.
Were you avoiding it?
My doctor didn't tell me I needed to do it. He was like, you could just do the shit in the box thing. And then my wife got her colonoscopy. She's like, you should get yours. It's covered. Let's do it. All right.
You should tell your doctor, listen, doc, I already shit in the box for fun. Tell me something I don't do.
I am terrified of poo, and I'd rather have a camera in my ass than poo in a box.
That is really interesting. I did not know that about you. Why is that the thing that disgusts you?
I don't know. Adult poo really gets me grossed out. I mean, like, I had no problem changing my daughter's diapers and stuff like that. I mean, I gagged sometimes when they got older and the poo was pretty real. But no, it's if my daughter's poo, okay. But my own, I don't like, or any other adults, no, thank you.
So you decide to literally have someone stick something all the way inside rather than just poo in a box?
I think so, yeah. I had the box. I had the box for a year. I go back for my physical. And the doctor's like, did you ever do the color guard box? I go, wait, the what? He goes, the box. I go, oh, that's holding up an external monitor in my studio.
And I can only think of Brad Pitt from Seven. What's in the box? What's in the box?
Never saw it.
Pete's poop. It's one of those things that you got it done. I'm glad you're talking about it because, as you know, many men avoid doing this until it's too late. And then they sit there and they go, if I had only gone to the doctor and taken care of my health and done the monthly checkups and gone the colonoscopy.
I think that's true of healthcare for men in general. I do feel like I wanted to be out front and talk about it publicly and champion it so that other men wouldn't, so there wouldn't be a stigma to it. But I'm no hero. There doesn't seem to be a stigma to it. And all of my friends talk about it openly and like kind of brag about, got mine done. I don't want, colon cancer is bad. I don't want it. So I feel like, ever since Katie Couric got it done and people are talking more openly about it, I feel like there's less of a stigma for men in general to get to the doctor. Still there. We still don't take good enough care of ourselves. We're afraid to find out if anything's wrong with us. But I feel like things are better. That's how I feel.
Well, things are better since when we were growing up, when no one even talked about this. It was like and for the young bucks who are listening, it was like a sense of shame. You're like, did you get it done? I did.
Right.
But don't tell anyone.
There was definitely undertones of somehow it's, has something to do with your sexuality, but it's
really,
I mean, like,
I thought it was just shame. I just thought it was shame where like you said, men don't talk about this. And because the procedure itself, I mean, obviously you have to get probed. Yes, I'm sure there's some infantile type sexualization about it, but it's like almost like you're emasculating yourself by doing it. A real man doesn't do that. He just gets the cancer and dies. I guess.
That's a real man. A real man beats cancer.
Yeah, a real man just gets the cancer in the ass, doesn't tell anyone, and then dies of lung cancer by smoking Marlboros or the Camel.
It's there's so much to say about, and we've talked about this for years, about men and masculinity and how it's really so destructive and obviously very violent. It breeds so much violence in our country, our culture around masculinity. It's so often there with these outbursts of violence, especially recently. Well,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because what people aren't focusing on enough is that, there's so many mass shootings and there's so much terrorism. And apparently, Pete, I learned that if you are against white supremacist terrorism, which is the number one domestic terror threat in America, you're apparently against white people. So I apologize that I've offended you with my critiques of white supremacist
I've always felt
violence.
like you didn't like white people when you criticized the bad ones.
It's very interesting how people are getting so ornery on Fox and others when Biden just recently critiqued white supremacist violence. It's almost like you're telling on yourself and you want to be like, bro, be more subtle. It's like me criticizing Nazis and then they'd be like, whoa. At least they're efficient. I mean, come on. They wear good uniforms. Why got to be against Nazis? It's like, are you a card-carrying member of the Nazis? Do you have relatives? Like, what's happening? This full-throated defense. But as you were mentioning, when it comes to this masculinity, this crisis of masculinity, people are forgetting that this Dallas, Texas shooter who killed 8 people and whose social media profile revealed neo-Nazi leanings, racism, this targeting of Asian Americans. What people haven't focused on, Pete, is how did he start? He started off in the incel community. This like self-loathing, this anger towards women. And then one thing led to another. And it was like a kind of a pipeline towards then neo-Nazi and violent extremism. But the beginning of it was this type of massive insecurity around his sexuality and masculinity and this loathing of women. And literally this, we're talking about this other extreme, but so much of that drives this violence, man, this violence that men do against themselves and others. Just like literally, I did a joke on your show that if the angel of death came and gave men the option of like, listen, I could give you 10 extra years of really good life if you just cry once. And most men would be like, just kill me now. And the angel of death were like, whoa, that's not an option. They're like, no, just kill me now. I'll die now. I'm ready. Just kill me.
Crazy. I cried like 5 or 6 times last week alone in front of people, to the point my daughter made fun of me. I didn't know that about the Dallas guy with the incel connection. That's crazy. But I am like Tommy Tuberville. I think you call them white nationalists. I call them patriots. That's
Senator Tuberville to you, sir.
Excuse me.
Coach Tuberville.
In reference to the white nationalist threat in the military, it's always been there. It's only gotten worse. And yet there's still this huge segment of the population that wants to ignore it. It is so dangerous. I get why it's hard to talk about that there's white nationalists, Christian nationalists, active duty military members, but they pose a major national security threat, domestic terrorist threat. What are your thoughts on the latest about how we're talking about the threat within the military?
Well, we're not talking about it, right? to quote Zach Del Rocha of Rage Against the Machine, some of those who work forces are the same that burn crosses. It's always been that way. And for those who aren't hip to the news, Senator Tuberville, Tommy Tuberville, doubled down when he said, I don't believe there's white nationalists in the military who refuse to condemn them. And he says, when you say white nationalists, I think Trump supporters. And because they're Trump supporters, he's A-okay with it. And as you were saying, Pete, the FBI itself for years has known that there's a problem of white nationalist extremists in our law enforcement. And the reason why we don't root it out and the reason why we don't talk about it, even though this is the number one domestic terror threat in America for several years running, that has terrorized our law enforcement, terrorized Capitol Hill police, terrorized our democracies, poll workers, educators now, doctors, is because they're white. And we always wonder, right? We always say, what happens if this threat was brown? Oh, yeah, the war on terror. What happens if it was black people? Oh, yeah, the war on drugs. I mean, it would be leading news, but Tommy Tuberville, who also, by the way, is harming our national security by holding up Biden's picks for the military to the point where even Mitch McConnell is like, yo, can you please get these picks in because our national security is threatened? No one cares. And just today, Tommy Tuberville openly said, well, if there's no arrests after this Durham nothing burger, then we should stop elections. And so they're literally telling you the plot. That's fascist stuff, man. And now you're seeing the right, this coinciding with we've been talking about this on your show for years. And hopefully we have the receipts. We have your podcast. I've been talking about this. I've been warning about this, the normalization of white nationalist violence before the 2024 election. And now you're seeing them go all in for this Marine who murdered this mentally disturbed homeless black guy. Ron DeSantis has gone all in, and they've raised $2 million for white vigilante violence, following in the footsteps of Kyle Rittenhouse, following in the footsteps of the guy who was convicted in Texas for killing the BLM protester, and Tucker Carlson said pardon him, and Greg Abbott says, of course I will.
Yeah.
So there's a theme here, Pete. I can't figure it out. What's the theme? What's linking this stuff together?
We've been talking about it for years. You're absolutely right. And now I feel like we're in kind of a new phase, a more bold phase.
That's right. Bold phase.
Than ever before. It's wild. I mean, it's really crazy how people see it or don't see it, as you're saying. And it's very dangerous. And it's probably in your community. I think it's hard for people to realize that these folks might be living in their community. Maybe you live in a more liberal community or more progressive community, and you think that's not the case. But they're everywhere, and it's dangerous, and you have to stand up against them wherever they are. They're running for your school board. They're running for town council. They are running for office, and at all levels. And you can find them every day. Every day, there's hate watch sites that document the insanity that people are saying that are currently in places of authority, from the school board to the town council to the United States Congress and the United States Senate, and running for president. So
there you go. You went there. They're running for president, and I haven't talked to you in a bit. But did you see that CNN town hall? I had to see it because I wrote a piece for the Daily Beast.
It's been a week since the CNN town hall aired. I did watch it. I watched the whole thing. I read your piece at the Daily Beast. I think it's worth mentioning that I used to work at CNN. You used to work at CNN. We have lots of friends at CNN. We want a network like CNN to be at least better than it is. It's never going to be, a ideal news, I suppose. But at this point, they're getting worse ratings, I read yesterday, than Newsmax on cable. They got big ratings for that town hall.
3 million for the town hall.
But yeah, I was going to ask you about it, so go ahead.
Yeah, look, we've seen a pivot where CNN's new leadership, Chris Licht and David Zaslav, have openly defended the move to the right, courting literally Republican lawmakers, and they say that they want CNN to be a place for all voices, and they're going to give side to both. They're going to give a platform to both sides. That town hall was a shit show. Donald Trump ran roughshod over Caitlin Collins. It was packed with MAGA supporters, like a MAGA rally. He mocked and ridiculed Jon Carroll a day after he lost a defamation, a day after he was held liable for sexual battery and defamation. Promoted the election fraud lie that has radicalized people to commit violence. Just said absurd statements that he completed the wall that he did not complete, that he alone could end the Russia-Ukraine war in a day. And in the 1 week aftermath of it, Chris Licht has doubled down, has apparently berated his own staff and commentators and anchors who were on Anderson Cooper's show right after. Just, you could see their ashen faces, right? Apparently reprimanded Oliver Darcy, who now has Brian Stelter's reliable sources job, for accurately, he works for CNN. He's supposed to talk about the media. So he accurately described the internal dissension, and he got a dress down. And they have decided to go all in. So the question I have for you, Pete, is these are choices to platform voices, right? If you truly believe that you need a news network that platforms all voices, Well, there's also people who believe in Holocaust denialism. There's also people who believe in white nationalist deep state conspiracy. There's also people who believe in QAnon. There's also people who are anti-vax. Will you, as CNN, give them a platform, Pete?
If I had to make the kind of money that they have to make just to pay their bills, should say they do fine because of the carriage fees, but I would understand why they do what they do, because it's the best way to get huge numbers. In media, with politics or, quote, news, the way you get viewers is if it bleeds, it leads, or you platform the most extreme voices. Progressive networks, if you will, have never had huge success to the point they can make millions and millions of dollars. Those of us who are smaller entities can possibly do pretty well, but we don't get necessarily millions of viewers. That's what these networks have to do just to pay their bills. And I think time and time again, the way the model to make the most is the Rupert Murdoch model. It works because if you scare people, they will watch. But
it isn't working, right? Because like you said, CNN has been tumbling since that past week. Like every day the numbers are coming out. It has less eyeballs, folks, than Newsmax. All right. So MSNBC is doing pretty well. Fox is still like reigning. Not that many people watch cable news, but like CNN's pivot I'm talking about like less than 300,000 people are watching prime time. I'm talking about like less than 100,000 people tune into the 10 p.m. slot that used to be Don Lemon's slot. It's one of those situations where I feel like almost the cynic in me is like they're deliberately trying to kill it. It's like a lost leader.
No.
Or do you think they're trying to retain it for the eyeballs?
No, they're absolutely trying to retain it. I don't think anybody ever tries to kill executives. I can't think of a precedent. Maybe you can, but I don't think Chris Licht with his ego wants to go out like that. I don't think that's what they're doing. And also, more importantly, there's a lot of people who we would argue have a lot of integrity and intelligence, people like Jake Tapper and others on that network that are, attaching themselves to it. And I want to.
Very sad to see what Tapper did yesterday, man. Like doubling down on that bullshit Durham report. I was like, "What's happening?"
Yeah, his comments went viral on the right. But then I don't know. Every legal expert I've seen, from Dan Abrams to Barbara McQuaid, has just absolutely trashed it. The Durham report.
Everyone, right? Is because we can't be gaslit. And my fear is especially with the rise of AI and deepfakes. And the fact that a report came out today that all the networks are open to mainstreaming Trump again because he most likely is the presidential candidate. Yeah. What is going to happen in the next year and a half leading up to the 2024 election when you have like a fire hose of bullshit and you have all of our institutions not learning anything, Pete, from the past 7 to 8 years, platforming these lies and this, you said the word, they're emboldened, this emboldened violence that's happening, man. Like people are really just gunning people down now openly. That's a dangerous situation, especially for educators, our doctors, news personalities that they don't like, local officials, right? Like in Virginia, we still don't know who came in and bashed the office of the elected official, right? Like with the aluminum bat.
Jerry Connolly in Virginia.
Yeah, I still don't know who actually did it, but the dude came in with two aluminum bat and like sent 2 of his aides to the hospital. Like, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, I hate being right about it, but it's like I'm Brown Paul Revere, and instead of them saying, "Oh, hey, you were right," they're like, "Shut up, darky," and they like shoot me as I'm like, "Hey, the British are coming!" Like, quiet.
Well, what do you think that CNN or any of the major news networks or anybody else should do to cover Donald Trump if he is in fact leading the polls, if he is in fact the nominee? I think it's pretty clear you never put him on live. And you fact check him, or you don't air his persistent lies. You definitely don't give him a live audience, or anybody. I don't care who it is, Joe Biden or any Democrat. No more live audiences. Let the people speak on tape. Let them ask their questions so it's coming from people, or just be like, "All right, Pete sent this message in from upstate New York. He said," there's a million other ways to do it. You have to cover it, but it's how you cover him that matters. Yeah,
it's how you cover it. It's how you frame it. Is it a racehorse? Are you reporting? Jay Rosen, who I think you've interviewed, who's a critic of the media, always says, instead of covering it like a racehorse, talk about the stakes. What are the stakes, right? Educate people. Don't say both sides, but say, "Oh yeah, Republicans are hijacking the debt ceiling and will take us off a cliff just to make mass spending cuts," right? The both sides framing, I think, has created this artificial reality that doesn't exist, that gives so much more power to 30% of America, which is MAGA. And what it does, it shifts the conversation to the right. The Overton window of what was once unacceptable has shifted to the point now, Pete, where we're sitting in 2023. You could say deep state, Soros, yada, 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 like Elon Musk did yesterday. That's an anti-Semitic white nationalist conspiracy. It's no longer news. It's mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you make of what's going on with Twitter and the latest? You're still up there. You're still on there. You're still tweeting.
Dude, I'm on there, but like, I don't know how it is with you, but each time you mock, which I do every day, white nationalists, white supremacists, Elon Musk, like you said, they're so emboldened now. They're all out of the woodwork. It's not even the usual bots. Like, these are people with their straight up profiles. Like, I kind of joke with folks that I've always been getting hate mail since 9/11. Actually, my first hate mail was on 9/11. But they used to use like fake email accounts. Now they sign their names and tell me where they're from, like the city and the town. Like I'm like, oh, well, thank you for your transparency. I appreciate it. This emboldenment, and my fear is if Trump wins again, what's to say he's gonna leave? And I don't know if you watched the show Succession.
Yeah,
but man, that was a scary ass episode.
I'm not caught up. I actually have watched it, but I've missed the last few episodes.
Well, I mean, you were starving and you had things up your butt.
Oh God,
so
I couldn't even watch. Sense. I couldn't even watch TV. I was in such misery just for not eating. That was the thing. Yeah, that's a terrifying show and a potential predicament. I don't think we get there again. I think he's going to be in so much legal trouble by the time the summer's over that it's going to be really hard. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, let's talk about Ron DeSantis, who is being considered somebody who would challenge him. It's a fascinating thing to see them tear each other apart. But Ron DeSantis this week, of course, they're going after a teacher. Did you see this? I feel like you tweeted about it. This teacher who showed a Disney movie that was ostensibly about environmentalism, a connection to nature. And there's a short scene where one of the cartoon characters says he has a crush on a boy. And they don't even make a big deal out of it.
It's not the focal point of the story. The story is about father-son relationships and pretty much generational trauma, essentially, right? It's okay. It's a fun movie. I saw it with my kids when it came out. The son is a biracial kid who is openly like gay and like it's very normalized, and he has a crush on a kid. It's like briefly mentioned and it comes back at the end. There's no kissing scene, but that's not the focus point of it, right? But that for the teacher who showed that movie apparently went against the new anti-woke guidelines of DeSantis, who, as of this recording just yesterday, banned the teaching of diversity initiatives in public schools. And so now they're attacking her. And I personally think
in colleges.
Yeah, and colleges. It's wild. And
adults can't learn what they're not able to discern. Apparently, it's inappropriate for college students even.
And he mocked UC Berkeley yesterday. I went to UC Berkeley. I'm an English major. I just got paid very well to address a corporate law firm that rejected me. So I'm doing well. But these guys, like, look, we've said it before, bringing it back full circle. White supremacy has always been very self-destructive, Pete. It's violent, destructive, but ultimately self-destructive. This is self-immolation. Florida is going to get dumber. It's attacking Disney. It's going to get poorer. They're attacking the migrants, and now they're like, we need these undocumented folks because we have farms. So literally, their economy sucks. Their youth is going to suck. Women's rights going to suck. People are going to stop doing business with them, Pete, especially like a lot of black colleges, a lot of black students. They're like, should I go to Florida or should I go somewhere else? I'll probably go somewhere else. But for the sake of feeling great again, they'll destroy themselves. And speaking about self-destruction, I've said before on your show, I've written an article about it. I think Ron DeSantis is a wet noodle. As I've said in your show, that once he gets exposed with the national limelight, he's going to wilt. You've seen the gaffes. You've seen the stories where literally they have to instruct him to make eye contact. He doesn't have it, Pete. And after seeing that CNN town hall, can you imagine him on stage with Trump? What's going to happen?
I mean, it'll be a disgrace. I mean, one thing we learned about Ron DeSantis, which is really bizarre, he has these very strange physical reactions, and it's hard to.
His laughter is very interesting.
I think it makes, for better or for worse, it shouldn't, but it makes voters and the public feel uncomfortable when leaders in government or the public sector, private sector, have that kind of physical, like maniacal laughs or angry reactions. Like it's physically jarring.
Remember that? It derailed Howard Dean.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can think of several examples. It's physically jarring to people, and Donald Trump is going to eat him alive on that stage. My friend J.L. Govan, who's the best impressionist of Trump, in my opinion, says that he's going to call out Ron DeSantis for even stealing his hand gestures. And DeSantis is going to be so flabbergasted and flustered by these attacks, he won't know what to say.
I mean, because we've already seen Ron DeSantis twice on stage with Gillum and with Chris during the debates. He was terrible, man.
Yeah.
He was like deer in headlights, didn't know how to respond.
Yep.
And also, this is an East Coast educated, Ivy League educated, wealthy guy who, Trump has dirt on him. And he's going to, look, what we saw at the CNN town hall is a fascist who still has a MAGA army that he will unleash. They're still loyal to him. Mm-hmm. And he has the carnival barker's charisma, as I say. Ron DeSantis doesn't have it. And as soon as Ron DeSantis gets out of Florida, he wilts, Pete. He wilts. I think it's better for Biden to go up against Trump because I do agree with you. I think majority is exhausted by Trump. My concern is what we mentioned on your show before is the stochastic terrorism. Yep. Is Trump literally unleashing the MAGA cult that is now emboldened to commit violence and illegality to get power by any means necessary? And how much will we, the majority, tolerate? I don't know.
What do you think about the way the Biden administration has handled these debt ceiling negotiations?
I mean, look, the concern is that he might play ball. And if he plays ball, that means cuts in popular programs that help a lot of folks. And Democrats want him to play hardball. But the fear is, Pete, and this is where I think Biden and this is what Democrats get screwed over by, is because they're adults in the room and they realize this will be catastrophic for the U.S. economy and the global economy. There's like a fear that terrorism actually might work. Economic terrorism might work. Like literally Kevin McCarthy and the GOP are willing to push us to this crisis where literally it will be catastrophic for the U.S. economy. And why? Because they want to make massive spending cuts, but they want to include the disastrous tax cuts that actually balloon the deficit in the first place. So how do you deal with an economic terrorist? You tell me.
I mean, I think you just tell them to go fuck themselves, and you 14th Amendment it, and you raise the debt ceiling, which is a dumb thing. It's in
our Constitution. It's completely anachronistic. It's only in the United States. If I were you, I would do that. I would literally go out in front of the American public. I'd make the case that I'm dealing with economic terrorists. I will literally tell them exactly the type of cuts that they want. I will spell out the stakes, and I will say, I'm the president. I'm going to use the 14th Amendment. I have the executive authority. F this, I'm done. And we're going to pay our bills.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the political analysis is for Democrats as to what they lose. How do they lose? I just don't understand where or how.
It's because we bring a dull pencil to a knife fight and they bring a bazooka.
Yeah. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't understand what the options are, but I thought that they could raise the debt ceiling without.
And this is where I respect Republicans because they don't give a shit, Pete. They don't care if it's popular, if it's not popular. They don't care if their base likes it. They're like, we have power. Go F yourself. There's a line from Succession that I won't ruin what happens, but Kendall says it really well. He goes, yeah, it's fun. It's my team versus your team. But the difference is if my team wins, my team will shoot your team. And Shiv is like, ho.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. Although maybe I might disagree with you. I don't know if this is what you're saying. I think those tactics are minimizing and marginalizing their movement, their party. They're going to get less and less voters, which is why they are also gerrymandering and voting, creating voter suppression, making it harder to vote because there's fewer and fewer people that support them. Their extremism on things like abortion, on LGBT movement, on the debt ceiling and economic issues,
change, guns.
On guns. Yeah, I think that's minimizing and marginalizing the movement in the Republican Party. I think they have been branded as extremists, as white supremacists, as, the gun issue, of course. And so I think it's working not to their advantage, but to their detriment in the long term.
Well, I don't disagree with you. What I want to add, though, as I've always said on your show, is that the death rattle of white supremacy will transform into a death march.
Yeah.
And what we're witnessing is a radicalized, weaponized movement that will use violence and any means necessary to get power.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
Yes.
And what happens when all of our institutions, instead of calling them out, normalize it? And we're witnessing that in real time.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of our institutions, though, some of them have certainly held up. The courts, in many cases, not in all cases, but when it came to the election, seemed to have held up, with the big lie, at least.
That's the thing. It just chips away. And what we've talked about on your show is that their plan is to use the zealous minority that is very well funded, very passionate, very organized to take over the institutions that belong to the majority. Example, local school boards, local hospital boards. But what we've seen and what you've done through example is that when the majority, even in the red states and rural places, steps up to them, they lose. The question is, can we galvanize the majority to actually fight back, especially when the majority is being bombarded through a fire hose of disinformation, malaise, exhaustion?
I'll speak for my community, and I think it's hard. I think it's hard for the whites to do the right thing because they're scared. And they should be scared to some extent. There's things to be afraid of, but they're more afraid of putting themselves out there than what they have to lose because it doesn't directly affect them right away necessarily. Although I do think that's changing to a certain extent. People do not like books being banned and some of these. But I see a lot of white people who are just afraid to do the right thing because of what might happen to them. You know, and I mean, like being called names and having your reputation, damaged, or having, in my case, them call a fake call on child protection services. I'm like, they do these things. It's pretty scary. I get it. But if we don't stand up for what we believe in, who are we? What are we? I don't know. I can't see it that way. I can't live my life that way. But a lot of people do.
And also they're mistaken into assuming that their whiteness and wealth will protect them.
Oh, and
this includes wealthy people of color. Oh, they won't come after me. They always do. Fascists always do, until it's too late, right?
Yep.
So it's one of those situations where, can you mobilize enough people of goodwill to step up and fight? We did it last time, but these elections, man, they come down to a few states, and some good trends are what happened in Wisconsin, where that liberal judge won. That's huge. And you're right. The Republican Party has made no pretense whatsoever about actually winning over votes. So, we're just going to raise the voting age to 25. That's what we're going to propose. We're going to suppress black votes. And if not, we'll just do the independent state legislator theory and, throw out the electors that we don't like, put in the electors we like, and we'll do a coup.
Or as you said earlier, as Tommy Tuberville said, let's get rid of elections.
That came out today, folks.
Crazy.
Just get rid of elections.
All right. What's good in your life before I let you go?
Nothing, man. I've been traveling. I've been trying to eat healthier. I have to start working out again because I was traveling for 2 months and that disrupts everything. Just trying to take care of my health. We're at that age now and trying to pace myself, spend time with the kiddos, learning Spanish, trying to pick up the guitar, learn some guitar. And I'm trying to get my hope is to get a personal trainer this summer. To kick my ass. Let's see.
Well, if you want a remote one, call my wife. She's the best.
Hey, man, your wife also did right by taking you to the doctor and telling you to get a colonoscopy. So there you go.
That she did. Or wrong. I don't know if she's happy with the results, but she expected more discomfort, maybe.
Thank you for having me. It's been a while. I appreciate it. I've only been busy, so sorry for the Pete stand-up listeners. Pete's invited me twice before, but each time I was traveling. So I didn't hate him off. Or write him off. It was just I was waiting for him post probe.
We are
congratulate.
No worries at all. Always happy to have you when we get you, and love you and appreciate you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
There he goes, everybody. Wajahat Ali, how about it? Give him a shout over on the Twitter. Give me a shout and sign up for the podcast with a paid subscription. Please, pretty please, with sugar on top. What do I need to do? What do I need to do to convince you stragglers out there to sign up for a paid subscription if you haven't already? If you've ever tried to contact me to do something outside of Patreon, try again. I think I've let a few of those people just languish. How do I pay you without having to sign up on Patreon? I wasn't sure. We could figure it out. standupwithpete@gmail.com or patreon.com/PeteDominic. All right, your quote of the day, and if you're still listening, good news. We won the board election again. 2 seats were open, and the 2 people that we got behind, those of us who care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, who don't want to destroy public education. We beat the right-wingers in my town again. So that's huge news for you bumblebees here listening at the end. I appreciate you. And let's end with a quote on democracy. How about that? There's a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. A strain of anti-electoralism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. Ooh, that's good. Isaac Asimov. Oh, wait, here's one more on democracy. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Or is it Roosevelt? How do you say it? Democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education. Yeah, we nailed it. Very excited. I will talk to you tomorrow right here on Stand Up. Thank you very much for listening. Jon Carroll, take us away.
Black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in. With other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? Cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up, got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up, people got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Stand